Good evening and salutations, my Days of Alive fans. So let's talk about this scene for a minute between Sarah and Bonnie. See, Sarah is looking on her phone, looking at Xander, kind of thinking about the good times that they had. Bonnie comes in there. Bonnie sees that, and at first they're talking about Xander, and Bonnie's like, listen, good riddance or whatever. And Sarah's a little kind of surprised because she's like, what happened? I thought, you and him kind of made up and y'all are cool again. And she was like, yeah, we were cool until what Xander did to Philip. Here's where this conversation starts to go off the rails, right? So she brings up, you know, a time where she was with somebody that she felt that was very similar to Xander, somebody that she loved with all her heart and everything like that. But this guy was abusive to her constantly, right? And granted, the whole point of this conversation is for her to sit there and be like, "Hey, listen, you don't want to be with a guy who is toxic and is violent, and keeps in it there making excuses, and keeps in it there accepting it, and keep getting him back into that vicious cycle." So I get where she's coming from. The problem with that, one, is that she's trying to relate her trauma to Sarah's trauma. Like, Sarah's like, listen, I'm sorry that you went through that, and nobody should ever have to go through that. But that guy and Xander are not the same. Yes, Xander has a temper, right? Xander will sit there and be like, I will change. And then he'll go back to being what's in his true nature, right? And over and over and over again. And all these promises and lies and stuff like that. And you still just want to go back into the same vicious, toxic cycle. But they're not the same. Like, yes, what Mimi wound up doing and putting Mimi through that trauma and everything like that was bad. But they're not on the same level. So I get what she's trying to do. It's it's a bad example. It's a bad example. Like point blank period. It's a bad example. But she does sit there and talk about custody and her, Bonnie Smith is saying like, yo, listen, Xander's gonna sit there and play dirty. He's gonna go all out, and you need to do the same thing. And gives her some ideas on how to do that. And one of the things that they talk about is trying to get Xander to confess. I don't know how to picture of this, but I don't. But we'll talk about first of all, let's talk about Gwen, Javi, and Leo, right? So she pretty much basically sits there and says that, listen, I don't rock with you. What you did to me was terrible, to Leo. And, she's like, I hate you and I'm going to get revenge on you. And part of me is kind of like, you don't think that's going a little too far? Like, don't get me wrong. You don't rock with the guy. You don't have to. You don't have to sit there and have to like, take advantage in your life in that spirit or whatever, right? I do think hate is kind of a strong word, but I'm like, okay, fine. Now she's like, oh, I'm gonna sit there and get revenge. See, the thing about Gwen, and eventually she gets to Xander, is that some of these women love to do what I like to call peacocking and try to come across like, oh, I have everything, or they need to boast of this, like, I'm on top of the world thing. Like, they need to prove themselves to someone. Like, she was doing it a little bit. Um, Audra was not there doing it on Young and the Restless. There's just something about that just, it comes across as not even just like a turn off, but just a bit annoying and kind of pathetic, you know? Like at the end of the day, you got the fortune and everything like that. You got the money. You don't have to sit there and scrounge and scrap and everything like that. And that's great. but it's like this constant bolstering and dragging that's just like I don't know. For me, when I started listening to Out the Wild, I start to roll my eyes like, yeah, okay, and it just kind of takes me out of it a little bit. But anyway, after she leaves, let's see something. Okay, I guess I don't got it. After she leaves, Leo tells Javi, why she's so upset, and Javi's like, well, damn. I totally get why she's angry. Like, yo, you literally sat there and went behind her back, was hooking up with her man. That woman literally, you called her like if you could betray somebody who is your so-called best friend, what line can you not cross? So, Leo's like, yo, yeah, he's taking it a lot more, like he's taking it really bad, like maybe I don't deserve him or whatever. They ultimately wind up patching things up and talk about the baby and their plans and stuff. But like for a hot minute, yeah, he was taken a bit back. Now Xander is also sitting there thinking about Sarah and runs into Gwen, right? And Gwen, yesterday she was like she has some loose ends or whatever to tie up. So, this isn't about me coming there for, giving back your necklace or whatever. And I feel like one of those things that she has to sit there and tie up or whatever is getting back with Xander. And I'm like, girl, really? Like, I don't know. It's something about watching a woman sit there and throw herself at a man that does not seem like he's really that interested. It's so pathetic to watch. I think it's pathetic for anyone to sit there and throw himself at another person that has zero interest in them. But like at first she's like, she says that, hey, listen, I feel, I'm sorry that you're going through this whole thing with Sarah and everything like that. And then she talks about how she practically felt like she messed things up by being insecure because she always felt like, as long as Sarah was in the picture, I was never going to sit there and be with him or have a chance with him. And she was like, she wished that she took that gamble instead of lying about the fact that Sarah, didn't really dump him because she was just wanted to, but because she was at an island. So she was like, she wished that she did things differently. They get to talking a little bit more. And, there's a point where she's like, listen, I just felt like you were the guy who got away. And she was like, I always sit there and think about what ifs. And there's a point she was like, do you ever sit there and think about that? He's like, no. See, that would have just kind of hurt me at that point, and it probably would just not so much shut down, but like I would have been sitting there trying to get with that person. But she continues to do that, right? They get to talking, they get to drinking and stuff like that. There's a point where they're like wobbling because they drink so much, and he's telling this cheesy story, whatever. One thing leads to the next, and they start kissing, and he starts to back off, and he's like, listen, I can't do this. And he's about to leave, but she like practically drags him into the same hotel, and you got Javi and Leo just sitting there watching. And I don't know. Part of me's like, okay, you saw that, and what? Like Leo, Javi, you don't. Well, Javi, to be fair, Gwen was sitting there being kind of bitchy with you at first, but today she was like, you don't know this man as much as you think you do. You have no idea who you're with. Leo, on the other hand, I'm like, bro, there's not really too much you can sit there and say. Like, you screwed her over royally. Um, so I'm like, whatever you saw, just go back home and be with Javi and this child or whatever, while Javi sits there and tries to prolong this whole adoption thing. Because you know that he wants to keep that child and raise him with Leo. Um, okay. Let's talk about Mr. Doug Williams, aka the guy who can't do a damn thing right. Ari at first tries to sneak in up into Doug's room, and Roman catches her. And Roman's like, you came here. You didn't come here to see Kay. You came here to sit there and see Doug." And Ari tries to play it off like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And then she's like, "No." She says something or whatever, and she's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna leave." While Doug is sitting there counting his money, I guess that he got from the Brady pub or whatever, his paycheck, he's like, "Yeah, this is not enough." I'm like, "Yeah, it's not enough. But what are you gonna do about that?" "Well, you're just gonna give the whole dough and woe is me and not do a goddamn thing, knowing that you got two girls' lives that's on the line because well you screwed up your life and now you're gonna screw their lives up." But Ari climbs through a goddamn window, right? And she's like, "What's going on?" And at first, Doug is like, "You really climbed up the window?" Like, "Oh, you climbed up the window to sit there and see me?" And she's like, "No, what are you talking about? The way you treated me, or whatever. I don't want to hook up with you." Which is really interesting. She says that because towards the end of the episode, she was up hooking up with him. But she's like, "I want to know what's going on. This hot and cold back and forth nonsense. Like, what's up with you?" So Doug keeps it real with her. He's like, "Listen, I owe this guy a lot of money. You shouldn't be around me. Um, I don't want you in danger." Now her dumb ass is all like, "Well, I'm attracted to the bad boys and I don't mind and this, that, and the third." I'm just like, typical cliche BS, but okay, sure, whatever. And she starts kissing him and stuff like that. And at this point, Doug is like, "Well, you're already here, so you know, let's go. Let's do this." I just want to see his picture. Uh, that's comical. Now Belle gets home and Marlena's up, and Marlena's like, "Oh, I was just waiting for you." It turns out that she can't sleep because she's still grieving, and she doesn't. It's sort of like with Julie. She doesn't want to sit there and get back into that bed knowing that John is never going to be there, and so this is why she's having trouble sleeping. She's pacing back and forth, and Belle's like, "Yeah, I know. His house is kind of quiet. Like I know what's going on at times." Um, Marlena was also asking about how's the case going, and without giving too much detail, Belle's like, "We got some information that if Johnny's innocent, it's going to prove that." Um, and again, she talks more about her grief and stuff like that, but like there's one point though where she gets up and I guess she is about to go on the couch or she's about to go somewhere and she almost, like faints a little bit. And Belle's like, "What's going on? You good?" And Marlene's like, "No, no, no, I'm good. I got a clean bill of health or whatever." Because she did sit there and talk to Sarah, and long story short, it seemed like it was more mental than physical. But then I saw the previews, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on or what they're doing. I mean, I feel like it's going to go back into um, a certain level of territory where some of the Days fans kind of expected, like supernatural stuff and the hokey pokey stuff. And other people are gonna be like, "See, this is what kind of tunes me out of the show because then it starts to get a little unrealistic." I mean, when it comes to a soaps, some people like it a little more grounded. Some people like it a little bit more realistic. Um, you I guess if you look at it, you can almost sit there and see like a cross between Passions and General Hospital in a sense, where it's like they have the agents and they do have really grounded conversations. But then you have stuff where it's like they do possessions and body swaps and bringing people back from the dead and um especially the whole possession stuff, it starts to turn into, passions a little bit. So I feel like they're gonna go in a direction where they're not gonna make a certain group of people happy. But when it comes to a soaps, eh, let's be honest, they're never gonna make everyone happy. That's just how it is. Anyway, I feel like that's generally about it. If I missed anything, write in the comment section below. gonna sit there and do my best to try to do a live stream tonight. Still have a couple of soap operas to sit there and watch. Well, after General, I think I'll just have two, and I think I should be able to do it. I will leave a post in the community tab about what time I'm gonna do my stream. And yeah, I just want today's fans to sit there and come through because we had a lot to sit there and talk about with this. Um, so yeah, come through tonight. Share the video if you can because that really does actually help, especially with the Days stuff. Because there's Days fans. There's Days fans. So I know it should be the numbers, and it's not just about the numbers with an ego or anything like that. But I just feel like a lot of Days fans out there. I mean, I know there's one other person that does do Days, which is Andre Epps. But besides him, and maybe Brock every now and then. Well, okay, then there's Tish and Days. So okay, well, besides those people, um, it's Days fans out there. So let's get them in the comment section. Let's get them in the live streams. Anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna go. I'll see you in the next video.